I was planning to talk in English, but maybe I talk in Tibetan. So maybe 2 years ago, isn't it? We was planning to have the oral transmissions of the cycle of the Hayagriva cycle, and we didn't really finish even the first half of the first volume. There's 5 volumes in total. So we continue this year with the transmissions. So there are 2 volumes of the cycle of what is in the Tengyur and what belongs to the compositions of the great 5th Dalai Lama, and 3 of Khelka Damsik Dorje, Mongolian Lama. So before received this transmission before. So about 20 years ago. So then, and previously when we received from Geshe Tenzin, there were about 50 people present receiving the transmissions. So in that way I received these transmissions. Then in each different monastery we have different abbots, like SeraJey and SeraJey. So I received these transmissions from Geshe Tenzin Rinpoche. So that's how I received the transmissions. So I received these transmissions a few times, as well as other transmissions of the cycle and initiations and rites of initiations of this cycle. And before, so many initiations also I received from His Holiness Dalai Lama, and I did a few retreats of the deity as well. So before in Tibet, in the main temple, the Tsulakang, His Holiness had signs of this particular deity as well. And at that time also I had an auspicious dream and had a wish to receive the transmissions of this cycle. And Kelsang Rinpoche, very close to His Holiness, I asked him about the transmissions, and he said that Geshe Tenzin Rinpoche has the complete or transmissions of the whole cycle. So then I decided to make a request, not in Tibet, but at that time we were already in India. And then first I checked Geshe Tenzin for a few days, and then another great master of SeraJey, Geshe Rinpoche Lobsang Tsering, he also told me to definitely go and receive these transmissions from Geshe Tenzin and praised Geshe Tzengin's qualities. So then that same night after that, then I had some auspicious signs, and also based on the advice of Gen Lobsang La. So at that time there was also Kala Chakra initiation happening in Bulgaria. And then I had a kind of sign of a dream that gave me a doubt that maybe I'll have met this teacher in a previous life. So I thought I've met this Geshe Tenzin maybe before. So I thought maybe I met this Lama before. So then I invited Geshe Tenzin to Dharamsala, and then the 2 volumes, including the Great Fifth Dalai Lama's works, and all the 3 volumes of Kelke Damsik Dorje. I requested these volumes from Geshe Tenzin in Dharamsala, and also the transmissions, they happened in Dharamsala, in Tushita in Dharamsala. So then at that time I received the complete cycle. Also Kyabje Jate Rinpoche was there, and Kyabje Pari Rinpoche and Tari Rinpoche. They were also present at the time of the, and a few other people from Geshes and Lamas from Gyume Monastery as well, and a few other elder monks were present. Bakula Rinpoche was also present. So it was a very fortunate situation to have received these transmissions. And then later, Geshe Tenzin met His Holiness. Then went to Tibet and came back to India again. There was one particular sponsor also present, person who helped out. And then also Geshe Tenzin had an auspicious dream So there was one particular statue in a cave, and that spoke. So that's the origin of these transmissions, and now I feel very fortunate to be able to give the transmission, to offer the transmission to you. So the beginning of these transmissions, we normally always have to generate a motivation. Like Babonka Rinpoche Deje Ningbo in the calling the Guru from afar. I received from Kyabje second Dojichang. So Rinpoche gave this transmission. So maybe from that particular text of calling the Guru from afar, I was planning to give the transmission of that, as well as a little explanation, so that also will be able to generate the correct motivation by these initial transmissions and explanation. So Panchen Losang Chögyal Gyaltsen also composed many texts on the Guru Yoga practice. The sublime Guru, by the power of making firm requests. Please hold me in your great compassion. So that's normally a general kind of advice that is be given. So then for ordinary people, so to say, that the Lama is more so is more superior or supreme than and has more potential to help oneself than one's parents in this life. So before so then two parents, they had a lot of children. The father was a businessman. So he went to the ocean and find islands with jewels. So he went on a trip. And then later on planning to give it to his mother. story like that. And later he left. He didn't keep his promise. So he said he will go to look for jewels. And then his mother said, "Please don't go." And then the mother held his legs and said, "Please don't go." So then he didn't listen, and then he beat up his mother at that time. So he created a lot of negative karma by beating his mother to want to escape on her head. Then he went. Then he left, went to another island, and there was kind of a deity there. A lot of beautiful goddesses, and he saw 1, 2. He saw those different goddesses. He didn't stay, I think he went somewhere else. Then he went to another place. There was a black kind of house or hall. Then in that house was one person. Inside the house and in the iron house, so to say, huge, big in size. He saw this man, this businessman saw that person in this iron house, totally burning. So then I was experiencing a lot of suffering. So he generated some kind of compassion and practiced Tonglen meditation at that time. By seeing this person suffering in this iron firehouse, a lot of suffering he saw. And, the person couldn't escape, just running around and experienced a lot of suffering. So that actually shows that this businessman had some kind of positive states of mind by now generating compassion. I don't exactly remember what happened then, but then this person died and was born in the God realms. So that story indicates a kind of if you get angry at your parents, then it's a very negative karma because they have helped you so much. So that object has great potential. So the results, everything related with that particular object, the karma created in relating to a powerful object, you can have to experience in one particular life for a long time, or even being born in the hell states in the future. But also heavy karmas can ripen in this life. So that's why our parents, we should respect and prevent us from using harshful speech and try to deceive our parents, because its object is powerful. So then if you create negative karma in relation to to them, then you have to experience a lot of suffering. So then if one can see the suffering of the lower realms, then one knows that we as human beings is nothing compared. If we meet the suffering of the lower realms for just 1 second, then the suffering of human beings is like a peaceful state of mind compared to the 1 second of suffering in the lower realms, like the hells. So that's why the suffering as humans is kind of a breeze. So then we in the monastery, if we study well and follow the discipline, then there is a great benefit of purifying negative deeds, negative karma. So go to the pujas and the debates. So then we not only purify, but also put great positive potentials in our minds to study the great texts of the great texts. So it's a very, very powerful purification practice. You don't have to do separate preliminary practices. If you follow the discipline of the monastery and you study well, that's enough. That by itself can purify negative karma accumulated over countless eons. So if you know this well, most of you know this, I don't have to explain, but it's really true. So just stay in a place like this is very, very fortunate to be able to study and apply to your mind every day. You'll be able to purify negative karmas, and so one should rejoice. One should be very happy that we're very, very fortunate, very fortunate. If you think like this. If you don't think like that and you just want to go to the West, then it's different. If you think the West is maybe nice and the West has independence, but actually it's not real independence. So that's just a kind of attachment to the worldly aspects of foreign countries. But if we really analyze the different families in the West, then we see the suffering happening right there. So in that way, we're very fortunate. So we have the imprints and potentials of put in the past of negative karma. Negative karma created by the afflictions like anger, attachment, ignorance. So by the power of that, by the power of having created all those afflictions, there is no independence, there's no freedom. And there's only difficulties and suffering. So that's why, if we understand the real cause of suffering, then well, you know about more about the situations we're in. And then also we will understand the nature of life in the West. So actually it creates a lot of confusion in living in that way. So that's why we're actually very fortunate to live in a place here like the monastery. So if you think about future lifetimes, of the happiness of future lifetimes, even just we don't have to talk about that. Just in this life by itself, you can see that we're very fortunate not to have to experience the suffering like most people do in this world. So even just think about that, you can see how fortunate we are. Just for the time being, forget future lifetimes, but just even in this life, there is a great benefit. So we're very fortunate in that way. So that's why it's important to think about these points. So that's why we should know you're very fortunate. So because many people they like to go abroad, but don't really realize or know what's all like on the other side. So then even from that point of view, you don't even have to think about future lifetimes, just this life. Think about the benefits. Very, very fortunate, and you should enjoy the teachings, receiving all the teachings, instructions, study yourself, memorize, debate. That will actually purify a lot of negative karmas, as well as putting very fortunate imprints in your mind for the path to enlightenment. So in that way, even if you're born in one of the Pure Lands, then they also, people in the Pure Lands, they eventually pray to be reborn as a human being at this particular time, having the contact with the Tantras and be able to achieve enlightenment in a short lifetime of these degenerated times. So also from that point of view, we are born as a human being at this particular time. We are extremely fortunate because the beings in the Pure Lands, they make prayers to be born in places where we are, in this particular world, and especially in this particular place where we have studies and opportunities to practice. So that's also another point to think about, how fortunate we actually are. So that one should think about these points again and again, and then see the things we do here actually is all for the purpose of accumulation of merit and purifying negative deeds, as well as in the direction of training our minds. So a lot of negative karma gets purified. So that's why. So in a similar way. So then it becomes a bit much what I'm saying now here, but so study the great texts, and then Lamrim in particular. It's all for the purpose of subduing our minds. So if you do it for that purpose, then it's very happy place to be in a monastery. Then you get a peaceful mind, happy mind, if you really see it all in the light of subduing the mind. But if you get confused and let your mind get confused by thinking about things out of the monastery and let the afflictions take over, if the affliction take over, then of course you lose your interest here. You can be distracted or get distracted, and then problems can arise. So if you decide to stay and study the Lamrim and try to see through the Lamrim that your studies are meant to subdue your mind. Otherwise, it doesn't really become Dharma. So then it becomes just following the 8 worldly dharmas. If you don't really reflect upon these points of the need to subdue your mind, and if you generate interest in the attachment of samsara, then of course you will get distracted. So then later on you might regret. If you follow your afflictions in that way, you leave the studies behind, then later on you might have great regrets about what you've done. So try to mix the studies you do here with Lamrim and try to put it into practice. If you follow that advice, then to stay in a monastery becomes a very happy place, beneficial for the mind. And also, of course, it benefits the Buddha Dharma in general, to preserve the Buddha's doctrine, the pure Buddha's doctrine. So if you think in that way, you actually become a kind of upholder of the teachings, or you help to uphold the teachings, and then great benefits will arise for the Buddha Dharma as well as all sentient beings. So if you really put effort in that direction, then it's amazing. Then you have kind of amazing kind of opportunity. Really, really amazing. Great benefits. Very, very impressive, very important. So then try to see that the Guru, as I started with, is more superior than one's parents, in the sense having a greater potential to help oneself. But one should always have respect for one's parents as well. And in that way you accumulate also merit, good deeds. So if you help your parents, then of course you accumulate a lot of virtue. And that also can ripen even in this life. So Song Rinpoche, in his previous incarnation in Lhasa, then he also gave similar advice to the monks, who were a lot of scholars gathering together. He also gave a similar kind of advice. And then also his parents came to Lhasa. And then he also prepared the room well, cleaned the room before his parents were coming. So he taught to really prepare well for their visit. So then, in that way, show the example of the power of the object, and we should know that and act in accordance with our activities or behavior in relation with those powerful objects like our parents. So Song Rinpoche also explained this and showed that in practice as well, to help one's parents and the great benefits coming from that good kind of behavior. Then after, then other powerful objects. We can think about the different arhats, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. So after the arhats comes the Bodhisattva, being more superior as an object. Who focus upon all countless sentient beings. So in that way it becomes a very powerful object, the Bodhisattva. He works for the purpose of countless sentient beings. So if you offer something or you have respect for one Bodhisattva, then it becomes very powerful, because that Bodhisattva himself or herself works for the benefit of countless sentient beings. So, because they work for so many other beings, to have karma created in relation to them becomes also very powerful. So, just one Bodhisattva in that way. So, forget the great numbers you can pay respect to or behave well towards too. Just one Bodhisattva. Because they are motivated for all sentient beings, to help all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment. So that's why it becomes a very powerful object. Because they work for so many other beings. So then in similar way, Buddha Sakyamuni also showed the aspect of an ordinary being initially. So then I try to generate faith towards those powerful objects. Think about the qualities of Buddha, of body, speech and mind. Great qualities. And even more than that, one's own teacher is incredibly kind, showing an ordinary aspect. But thanks to our teacher, be able to receive transmission, explanations, initiations, etc. So that's in similar way. If a bodhisattva, if you get angry on a bodhisattva, a person who is not a bodhisattva gets angry at a bodhisattva. Just 1 second will destroy 1,000 eons of accumulation of positive karma. Just one moment. So in similar way, if you make an offering just for 1 moment, in similar way, if you have for 1 moment angry state of mind towards a bodhisattva, then 1,000 eons of positive karma are being destroyed. So then you can also relate that to the Buddha. If you just get angry for a small moment at the Buddha, even more positive karma created in the past will get destroyed, because he's more superior object than the bodhisattva. So just one moment of anger towards a Buddha, then you can imagine that countless eons of positive karma can get destroyed. Then, even more than that, if you get angry at one's teacher, actually one's teacher is the emanation or manifestation of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So then you can imagine, if you have one negative thought towards the Guru, so the Guru from whom you received Dharma teachings, so the one Guru you have a relationship with, so if you just 1 second angry state of mind, just for a second, then millions of eons of positive karma created in the past is just destroyed just like that, in a second. So that we can relate it from the scriptures of the Bodhisattva, 1,000 eons, then the Buddha even more, and even more than that, the Lama, the Guru. So then I was thinking to say something else, but so one pour of the Guru. So it says one quotation that if you just offer a little bit of saffron water, just a little drop of saffron water to the one pour of the Guru, just one pour, one small drop, then you actually make offerings to all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Sangha. So to all the representatives of body, speech and mind of all the Buddhas. So then you know that at that time you receive so much positive karma, so much merit. So I got a bit diverted, sorry. Some time was spent in this, what to do. So then we go back. So then there's another quotation of the importance of the Guru. How by a little offering with the right mind to the Guru, you accumulate so much more merit than even if you, for countless eons, or 1,000 eons actually, you offer parts of your body, like your head, your arms, your legs, offer your parts of your body to all the sentient beings. So that positive karma the accumulation of merit over 1,000 eons of practicing generosity of the perfections of one's limbs. So all that merit accumulated, one should, and then after that you dedicate it for all sentient beings. Then, even more than that, just a small offering to the Guru. Or follow the Lamas or the Guru's advice. Just that by itself. That by itself. For example, follow the advice of the Guru, whatever the Guru advises you. Then following that advice, so much more merit accumulated. Or one's commitments you have received from the Guru. Just doing those commitments by itself, you accumulated so much more merit. So that's why. So just 1 second of following the Guru's advice in that way is more merit accumulated than for 1,000 eons giving parts of your bodies to sentient beings and then dedicate that merit to all sentient beings. So just following one advice of the Guru is more merit accumulated. Just 1 second. Just 1 second you accumulate that amount of merit, even more than that, by following the Guru's advice. So you know, if you study these points, of course. So you should know this. Very, very important in the monastery, because we have our relationships with our teachers. So it's very important to have correct Guru devotion to one's teachers. Very important. Then one's potential can be activated. Even if you're not very intelligent initially. But if you practice with correct Guru devotion, then every second, by following the advice, by attending, by having respect, countless accumulations of merit are being accumulated. Just 1 second. By following the Guru's instruction, by countless accumulations of merit. Really amazing. So that's pretty amazing. Really. Then, of course, you get a happy life. And your life will become meaningful. Very precious. Very auspicious. Very, very fortunate. Incredibly important to know this. So that's why the Lama has this great potential. We talked about the potentials of the different objects. Incredible. In order to achieve enlightenment, not only not going to the lower realms, or not only not being born in samsara again and again, but even the Guru leads you to enlightenment. So the transmission. The transmission it took some time. So now maybe I start. So then also received the calling the Guru from afar, from Lingpa Rinpoche before, and some other lamas as well. So just meeting these kind of teachings, to be able to be present at this kind of teachings, or the teachings of the Buddha, is actually the impossible became possible. Very, very fortunate. Incredible. So having met His Holiness Dalai Lama, receiving teachings from His Holiness, not only meeting His Holiness or seeing His Holiness, but receiving teachings, that's amazing. Not only meeting the Guru, but receive explanations, oral transmissions, commentaries, different sutras, commentaries of the sutras, likewise the tantras, transmissions, initiations, instructions. So that is very, very fortunate to have this opportunity. That is incredibly fortunate to meet the Guru in this way, to have a connection with the Guru in this way. Very, very fortunate. So that's why having this incredible relationship complete. Not only met the teacher, the Lama, but receiving all these kind of teachings is kind of almost impossible. If you think about the difficulty to find this kind of conditions to be present, not being born in the lower realms, that by itself is already very difficult. Not to be born in the lower realms. So many beings are born there. So having a human body by itself, very, very fortunate. Then on top of that, having this precious human rebirth, it's very, very rare. Very rare. And then on top of that, having met the Guru and having received teachings is almost impossible. So the impossible became possible. Dharma Lodge Rinpoche before. He said that the continuity of the contaminated aggregates producing samsara So this contaminated continuity of the aggregates causes samsara, causes to be reborn in samsara. So now we are able, by depending on the Guru, to stop this cycle. So that's incredible. Then not only you be able to achieve liberation from samsara, but even more than that, to temporary and ultimate benefit, not only for oneself, not only thinking about liberation for oneself, but wanting to achieve enlightenment can be achieved with this precious human rebirth, can be obtained. That's incredible benefits of having found this precious rebirth and relation with the Guru. So that's why. So if you only have a self-charging attitude, one will harm oneself and harm others. So that's why we have to practice bodhichitta. So we always think we are the most precious ones, we are the most important ones. So based on this self-cherishing attitude, we create negative karma, causes us to be born in lower states. We always think we are very precious ourselves, isn't it? We have this self-cherishing attitude. So this attitude, if you practice or you study, whatever you do, if you only do this with a self-cherishing attitude in this life, then one only will harm oneself and harm others. So if you cherish others, not cherishing yourself, cherishing others, then there's great benefit for oneself and for others. If you're cherishing other beings, so then think you're cherishing all beings without exception, all of them. All cherishing all sentient beings to help them to achieve temporary and ultimate benefits for their purpose. Then, for all sentient beings, then the great causes for enlightenment. If you cherish others in that way. Cherish others in that way, then you create causes for enlightenment. Cherishing others. Then you're looking for the benefit and happiness of all sentient beings. That's oneself and others. So if one wants to benefit self and others, one should practice bodhichitta, to cherishing others more than oneself. Then real benefit will come. So I don't remember the actual quotation anymore. So that's why one makes request to the Guru to be able to do this by knowing the benefits. If you want to have benefits, if you want to have happiness, then you have to practice bodhicitta. Really. So that's very important. So it's important to start with. So since beginner's lifetime, without number, oneself has had countless mothers since beginner's lifetime, and they've been so kind. Not only this life, not only the mother in this life, not only the mothers of a few lifetimes, no, since beginner's lifetime, countless, without number. They're incredibly kind. And then they all born in different states of the lower realms, like the hell realms, animals, pretas, humans. So all the sentient beings, all of them, has been at least once one's mother. So it's like that. So incredible. So that's why all the sentient beings, all of them, all those sentient beings practice these points. Remember the kindness. Cherishing them, because only cherishing yourself generates the afflictions. If you generate the self-cherishing attitude, all kind of afflictions arise. And we have done that since beginner's lifetime already. We have accumulated all those negative karmas based on the self-cherishing attitude and afflictions. So you can see, was that of benefit or not? So there was no rest up till now. We didn't have a break of that since beginner's lifetime. So we have done all those negative deeds in relation to all the sentient beings until the present day. So now also, if you don't practice the Dharma in this life, if you don't practice the Dharma, then very difficult. But if you practice, and if you can generate the mind realizing emptiness, etc., then still you need the motivation of bodhicitta in order to liberate all sentient beings, in order to purify all negative karma. You have to practice the Dharma. Very important. So really reflect upon the suffering of all the sentient beings, every moment, every sentient being. So before in Singapore, we did a lot of animal liberation. So a lot of frogs and other creatures. We bought and released them in a reserve in the water. To help those sentient beings. Then I taught the mouse and the frogs. Liberate them. There was, of course, temporary benefit for them. So by the power of karma, they were being caught. So many sentient beings in this way, they are not in control. It just happens to them. So if you see countless of those frogs, countless mice, so if you really think and reflect in that way about the different beings in samsara, then every second one will generate a mind not to waste time. If you really reflect about the suffering of samsara and how we have experienced samsara since beginner's lifetime, and if we don't do anything, we have to do it, experience it again. So then, have to practice the Dharma. Bring benefit. So one has to practice the Dharma. To practice study, contemplation and meditation. Very important. For the benefit of all sentient beings. Then later on, realizations will come. If you practice properly, then you are able to help sentient beings to be liberated from samsara. So that's why if one practices the Dharma, then that's the best. That's the best. So we can do all kind of other practices, but the best thing we can do, the best thing we should do, is study, contemplate and meditate to get the realizations, to help sentient beings. That's the most important. So whatever you do in relation with the Dharma should be motivated in that direction. So that's why, for the benefit of all sentient beings, being one's mother since beginner's lifetime, for their purpose, I focus or motivate myself to achieve enlightenment. That's what we should do. That's what we should, how we should practice. For all countless sentient beings beyond number, you have to work for their purpose, to liberate them. If you don't go in that direction, then you have to walk in that direction. Because all the things we have depends on the kindness of sentient beings. The benefits of the Dharma, the different benefits that comes from the practice, All depends on sentient beings. They're so precious. So very, very kind. All sentient beings are so kind, incredibly kind. Even mosquito, even the ants, all the little insects, the creatures, everywhere. Very kind. Very incredibly kind. So kind. So one should remember this, because thanks to them we're able to practice. Thanks to them we get the realizations. So precious. Very kind. So that's a little bit of the introduction. So now the oral transmission. So Westerners, they don't like the oral transmissions much. So they like more teachings. But sometimes transmissions also are quite important. So that's why. So transmissions, just by hearing the words of the transmission, just by hearing the words, you put imprints in the mind. And these positive imprints will help oneself to meet the Dharma again and be able to give one's the potential to study, contemplate, meditate and get the realizations of the paths just by merely listening to the words of the transmission. So that's why if you hear the words of the transmissions, the imprints planted of that activity helps one to achieve enlightenment, or helps one to go in the direction of enlightenment. So that's very fortunate to have an opportunity to receive oral transmissions. Very great benefits. So the benefits of receiving transmissions. Geshe Tenzin Rinpoche before also gave a lot of transmissions. Then Rinpoche also said the Vajrayana Sutra, if you recite this Diamond Kata Sutra after having received the transmission, there is great benefits of being able to purify negative karma, etc. So that's why there's a difference between having received a transmission or not, if you recite that particular text. So 2 years before, right? The root text of the Abhidhamma, Kyungla Rinpoche gave, and also explained the benefits of having received the text of Vasubandhu. Then one is able to purify the negative karma of abandoning the Dharma. So that's why. In a similar way, when Vasubandhu himself was reciting this text, then the bird in the tree, listening to the recitation, was born as a boy in the village down below. And this young boy, when he was growing up, he became an incredible scholar of Vasubandhu's works, and in particular the Abhidhamma. He became an incredible scholar of the Abhidhamma literature, and in particular the Abhidhamma Kosha. But when he was asked questions regarding the Madhyamika philosophy, then he didn't have that similar kind of knowledge. because he never received those imprints before. So Geshe Tenzin Namdak also explained this story, the benefits of having received in the previous lifetime, just as an animal has great benefits in future lifetimes. So then for humans here is even more important kind of to know the great benefits of having received a transmission, to be able to get the understanding of the text very quickly in the future. So there's many examples like that who explain the benefits of having received transmissions like this. So that's why. So taking that as an example, we should understand the importance of these transmissions. So that's why if there's a transmission and if you not only purifies negative deeds, so this bird outside Vasubandhu's window, he just purified negative karma by just hearing. There was no intention. By just listening, by just hearing the words of the Dharma, of the Abhidharma Kosha, he was able to purify negative deeds, negative karma created in the past. So then, even if you don't know or don't understand the text, and by just hear the words of the transmission, that by itself purifies negative deeds, and you put imprints in the mind to be able to understand those teachings. So, if you don't have the understanding of the Dharma, but you have a lot of faith at these points, then there's great benefits, incredible benefits. So that's been explained by many lamas of the past. So that's why. So when we receive teachings, we debate and receive transmissions, when the text is very difficult to be understood, very difficult, the words are difficult to understand, and then we sometimes think, oh, it's too difficult, I don't understand it. So not knowing these points, then sometimes we might even think, oh, this text doesn't really benefit me. Doesn't benefit me. But instead of that, don't give up. So one should. It's a sign of the need for purification, because those texts can bring great benefits if you understand them. So please don't think, if you don't understand the text, it doesn't benefit me, because then it becomes the heavy karma of abandoning the Dharma, very heavy karma. So don't think like that way. It's very heavy negative karma. In the Concentration Sutra, it also says the benefits of the holy objects, the powerful objects, the ability to purify. So, like stupas, for example, if you destroy countless stupas on this earth, then you can imagine the negative karma being created. But even more negative than that is the abandonment of the Dharma. If you abandon a particular text, as just been explained. Or countless arhats. If you kill them, countless arhats, you can imagine how much negative karma is being created. But even more than that is the negative karma of abandoning the Dharma. So that's why one should never think in that way, or think this is only for the Hinayana, it's not really the Mahayana. If you think in that way, then it's wrong, it's abandonment of the Dharma, because it's all the teachings of the Buddha. Same with the Tantras. If some people think that the Tantras are from the Hindu tradition and not Buddhist, and only the Vinaya and Abhidharma are the real teachings of the Buddha, if you think in that way also, if you abandon the Mahayana in that way, and the Tantras, then you create very heavy negative karma. It's the act of abandoning the Dharma. That Demology Rinpoche before explained similar points. Never think of abandoning a particular text that is difficult. Don't put it away. Don't lose your respect for that particular text, because otherwise it becomes abandonment of the Dharma. So then also if you have texts that have to be burned, then you should burn them and think it dissolves in the Dharmakaya or in syllable A. In order to, if you have to burn a text, do it in a very respectful way. That's very important. Don't see it as normal paper. So that's a little bit about importance or the motivation of receiving a transmission. For the benefit of all hell beings, hungry ghosts, humans, gods, for all those beings, without number, who have the suffering of eating each other, like the animals. One eats another, another comes, eats that particular one. The smaller eat the smaller ones, the bigger the smaller, again and again. So much suffering. So if you see an ant, small ant, eating other creatures, biting other creatures, so you can see all those little creatures also having a lot of suffering. So for those beings, in order to achieve enlightenment, for that particular purpose, I gonna receive the transmission. So Hayagriva is the rightful aspect of our Lokitesvara. So His Holiness mentioned many times that it has a great potential, this practice of the Hayagriva, in order to help the Tibetan case and to help the Buddha Dharma, how it is being preserved in the Tibetan tradition. To practice this particular deity is very important. His Holiness mentioned that quite a few times. So that's why in a similar way, there's great benefits. So one should have faith in this deity and practice. We have a relationship, karmic relationship with this deity. So that's why. Very great potential. Very difficult to really express. the benefits. So, in that way, the Hayagriva, the most secret Hayagriva, if you do the retreat, there's great potential, incredible potential. If you do it for a month or something, it's great benefit. Before I did a retreat, or a person from Korea, was a businessman, a woman. So the Jade Buddha, the person who was involved in organizing that event, we made a Buddha statue out of jade stone. So they invited me to come before to Korea, but then it didn't happen. So there were some obstacles in relation with this person. But if you practice these kind of deities, then you can prevent a lot of obstacles from coming. Especially those in relation with the Tibetan case. And also to eliminate obstacles. And prevent obstacles from coming. So there's great benefits of this particular practice of the Hayagriva. So there are different activities of the deity as well, different practices that can be done. It's a very complete kind of cycle. If you recite the mantra, then it also prevents different types of spirits and different kind of obstacles. Beings can't harm oneself, for example. So there's many benefits of. So then I stop here and then put this here, and now I start with the transmission.